silence, and particularly perhaps this day we could keep our fellow citizens in Houston, Texas in mind tonight. But Mark, if afterward the moment of silence, if you could lead us in the pledge of flag. Now for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Shall we call the roll?
Mr. Bradley?
Here.
Mrs. Butcher Conway?
Here.
Mrs. Singer Ardley?
Here.
Mr. Lesby?
Here.
Mr. Showalter?
Here.
Mrs. Tingle Sames? Here. Mrs. Tackett? Here. Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Great. We have at least a quorum. Thank you. Each of you in your packet have a copy of the minutes from our special called meeting.
Motion, Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Second. Thank you. And if there are no corrections, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And your check register, if everyone could indicate if you received a copy of your check register. Thank you. Okay. Public comments. The first on the list, we have Mr. Bill Parker, who is going to talk about the American Heart Association Car Wash and Heart Walk and Health Fair.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As the Mayor was saying there, we've got 3 golden opportunities here coming up in the next couple of weeks to participate in some activities in our community. The first one is the American Heart Car Wash, September the 9th, from 9 to 2 at Soapy Joe's by Walmart. A portion of the proceeds goes to the American Heart, and over the last 3 years, we've raised a total of $3,500 for the American Heart just from car washes and car wash tickets that we sell. Second, we have a Heart Walk in Georgetown on September the 16th. Registration's at 10, and the walk starts at 11, and the hospital's having their health fair in conjunction with this. The health fair is in the morning that day. So there's great opportunity for everybody to get out and participate and get some flu shots, I believe, and some blood work done, and help the American Heart Association.
So you can make sure you're healthy enough in the morning and then get active that afternoon.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you all very much for your time. I do appreciate it.
Bill,
Thank
what
you.
was the date on the car wash?
The 9th is this Saturday,
This Saturday from
9 to 2.
9 to 2.
Yes.
Thank you.
And while Bill's at the podium, something that was in my mayor comments that I'd like to just go ahead and mention. Festival of the Horse is coming very quickly, and we wanted to have a horse-drawn wagon for the council to ride last year, and it just got so close and things got tough. But right after the festival was over last year, Bill and I rode out in the country and met the farmer that's got a really nice wagon with seats in it, and we looked at it and reserved it for this year's festival. So with Bill's help, we do have a horse-drawn wagon for the council to ride in for the Festival of the Horse.
Excellent.
That's
So-
nice.
Thank you.
Good job.
Well,
We
Lori's
actually put
actually,
that to bed a year ago.
we did, and Lori with tourism has finalized it this year. I got those folks together to where they could coordinate things. There really wasn't any use of me being in the middle, but I think you'll enjoy it.
Very good.
Thank you, Bill. Let's see, second on the list is some new name, Sean Darrington with GMWSS.
Some new name.
So is it Sean or is it the Bob Show tonight?
Yes.
Yes, okay, please.
Just yes.
Oh,
They're after you. But
That's
you can let
right.
them go first.
We're on the agenda later, so.
was this a real public comment or you're on the agenda later?
It's a fake one.
No. They have to wait for mayor comments.
And around.
He wants to go
That was a
first.
good one right there. I don't care what anybody says.
Let's see.
The old end around.
It was an end around, see? I compliment you, Sean, it almost worked. A couple of things, though, that I wanted, part of the reason I do need Bob and Sean here for part of the mayor's comments, because we're dealing with a couple of very large issues that GMWSS is right at our side with. I've been late on mayor's comments for the last couple of meetings, so I figured I'd just catch up tonight. We've got a few things that I need to talk with the council about. You probably have seen a headline in the local paper, the News Graphic, about a new report showing pollution coming from the trailer parks on the south end of the county and continuing to pollute the Cane Run watershed. Judge Lusby and I have met with representatives of the health department, and we have not seen the final report, but we've been told to expect that this report will be very bad. And people use various descriptors of just how bad this report will be. I think we can, we just know that this will confirm the fears that we've been talking about. This report should not come as news to any of us. We've known that this is an environmental problem. We've known it's a humanitarian problem for years. This report should not surprise us. The magnitude of the problems might get people's attention. The preliminary report will be released this coming Tuesday at a Farm City event that will be held at the new Stockyards location. I think, Bob, if I'm thinking right, the Farm City Day event started at 4. There's a press conference at 6 where I think they're going to release in preliminary fashion this data. The report was done by Third Rock Consultants, well-known consultants from Lexington, and the client is the Division of Water. So the results of this will be very important to us. This report will confirm that the circumstances are bad, and it will confirm the source of the pollution. And the county judge, the director of WEDCO, I have met to start discussing how do we start implementing the plan that we've developed. We have a plan. The good news is the city of Georgetown and this council has a plan. And in this year's budget, you have allocated the money for your portion of the plan. Scott County has budgeted their portion of the plan. The Lexington Fayette Urban County Council has budgeted their portion of the plan. Bob knows with the revenue from the customer base, be that one big customer or many smaller customers, that we can utilize a revenue bond in the amount of about $1 million. We've got the $1,075,000 grant from the State General Assembly that has now been waiting for 6 years. And we worry about if that gets taken back, if we lose it. And then we know that there will be a privilege fee arrangement with the owner of the trailer park for the opportunity to hook on to our pipeline. So we have a funded, workable plan to put a pipeline in place to address this problem. But the owner of the park must fix the infrastructure within the park.
it's a roughly, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
It's roughly a $3 million project, right?
We're figuring, David, it's between 3.5 and with contingency up to $4 million. And with the privilege fee, we're at the $4 million mark.
So kind of break it down then. The state's $1 million roughly,
The state grant is $1,075,000.
right?
The water company can provide a revenue bond for about $1 million.
Okay,
Between city, county, and Lexington, we're $1 million cash.
okay, all right. So
The
there's
privilege fee,
3 roughly,
and then the privilege fee.
and then there's the 4th.
So we could even, if the privilege fee had to be not waived, but if it needed to be processed over time, if the investor had,
Kind of carried or financed?
we can't actually carry debt legally, but we could cash flow that other $1 million until we receive it back. What we cannot tolerate is their internal infrastructure that allows a 6-to-1 ratio of infiltration.
Will the information that's provided give an estimated cost to fix everything within
We
the
have
problem
that-
area?
We have that from them.
We have estimates from them, and of course, that will be their cost and their estimate.
That's the bank though, right?
That is Midland Services. It's a holding company of
PNC?
one or more banks.
Okay,
And they have been, not expectedly, David, because it's a special asset and distressed property for the lender that owns it. They're not wanting to invest money, they're wanting to get out. The other very important point is that the package plant that is currently treating the sewage at the trailer park is past its permit date. So it is operating past its permit date with a violation. So it's essentially operating without a permit. They have made an application to the Division of Water that this permit be extended.
The bank has?
Mhm.
Okay,
The management company that is representing the bank.
okay.
We want to, and we have said this to the media, this will probably you'll become more aware of this tomorrow. The city and the county and the health department very forcefully want to communicate with the Division of Water that we do not think this permit should be extended. That the pollution is severe and it needs to be addressed. We have a solution, but the owner of the park has to make an investment, and the Division of Water has to have the courage to follow through and force this to happen.
So they're the enforceable authoritative figure, no one else, right? Division of Water?
Unless it's a court of law, but it's, the Division of Water primarily has the responsibility for these package plants.
I guess my thought process is, and I don't know, I'm just asking this question, when this report comes out and it's as severe as we think it's gonna be, would there be a process of termination or eviction to shut it down in order to be able to shut down what's happening until that could be fixed?
The answer to that is yes. And we hope we don't get there.
Right, understand that.
But either the Division of Water can deny a permit and close the package plant, or the Board of Health has very sweeping authority to respond to a public health concern.
the local board,
Mhm.
the local health department, a
WEDCO.
WEDCO.
How this is affecting our water.
And we think that this is such an issue of such magnitude that the city and the county and the health department need to stand together to address it. We do not think the permit should be renewed, and we have a resolution to ask you tonight that the council go on record asking that the permit not be extended.
And if it's not extended, what would happen?
a number of things I would think would happen, Karen, is if we go all the way to the end of this scenario and it worked out in its worst case version, someone could have to locate 2,000 people, relocate 2,000 people.
And who would that someone be? If we forced the hand, who would be responsible for relocation?
We're not responsible for a problem that's been up there for 20 years.
The people
The
in
Division
general
of
would have
Water,
for a place to live.
the owners of the unlucky folks who happen to own the trailer park right now. What I hope happens is that the banks that own this property have to get their money back out, and they're not going to get their money back out, I think, until the sewer situation has been resolved. Inspire Communities, had the trailer park bought, and they walked away from the deal over this issue. If the bank that owns this property wants to maintain their cash flow and support the value of the property, it's time for us to draw a line in the sand and say we're not going to have Scott County polluted in this way going forward. So our position with media and other folks has been the report. Even though we don't know its complete detail, we're not surprised that it's terrible. And we think that it provides us a tool to say, let's fix this today.
Is the county thinking of doing the same type of resolution as well?
Yes, ma'am.
And we're talking about Ponderosa and Spindletop, so we're talking about, what about the one that's on up the road, because it's polluting
Maple
too,
Grove.
there's just not as many people there.
Yeah, and in fact, we hope when we get the final study, we can better understand Maple Grove. Right now, Karen, the plan for extension that we have only takes care of the two parks. Now that Maple Grove is on our radar, we're willing to talk to Lexington about that, but the Maple Grove is not in Georgetown, it's not even in Scott County. So
But all the trailer park that we're talking about now, it's not all in Scott County,
about 1/3
most of it.
is in Fayette. About 2/3 is in Scott County.
But all of them are on that package treatment,
Yeah.
Two of them.
Two of them.
Treatment plant,
and both of those are inside Scott County.
yeah. Correct.
They sure are, under different incorporated names,
Of course.
but I just wanted you all to be aware that we're going to try and use this as an opportunity to aggressively move the pipeline issue forward. We do not want to cause unnecessary fear within the trailer park. And it's our hope that there are many steps between our resolution and urging the Division of Water to do the right thing and the day that that decision might be made.
Okay.
So now that I've introduced that, we have a copy of the resolution.
Here you go.
I'm sorry that this all unfolded too late to get it in your council packet, but if you would.
Sure.
Oh, did we hand one out? No. Okay.
These are the ordinances.
These are just the franchise.
We don't, just read it.
A resolution regarding Georgetown Mobile Estates and the Kentucky Division of Water. Whereas a recent study commissioned by the Kentucky Division of Water has found high levels of harmful E. coli bacteria attributable to human waste in the Cane Run Creek in the immediate area of two failed packaged sewage treatment plants at the Ponderosa and Spindletop trailer parks, now known collectively as Georgetown Mobile Estates, in southern Scott County. And whereas the packaged treatment plants have a long and ongoing history of pollution exceeding levels permitted by the Clean Water Act, and whereas residents of GME and of Georgetown and Scott County are suffering from the environmental impacts of these violations, and whereas despite more than a decade of violations issued to GME, the division has failed to take any significant action regarding the plants. And whereas the division is now contemplating reissuance of GME's discharge permit despite evidence in its possession that the package plants are in violation of the existing permits. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. That the City Council is opposed to the Kentucky Division of Water reissuing KBDES permits to the package treatment plants in Georgetown Mobile Estates until the ongoing violations at the site have been addressed. That the council request the Division of Water to enforce the provisions of the Clean Water Act prohibiting unlawful discharges from the package treatment plants at Georgetown Mobile Estates. Dated this 28th day of August 2017.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask another question?
Sure.
It's actually to the water company. And I'm putting you on the spot. As I sit here with a bottle of water in front of me, is our Georgetown water currently safe to drink?
Yes. We treat above and beyond the standards that the Division of Water and EPA puts out. We treat with chloramines for bacteria, and then in the finished water, we treat with UV for viruses. So, I mean, the water is safe.
And if this ever comes to pass that it's all said and done and the sewer line's up there, what will change your processing?
Probably none because of our overabundance of caution. We'd probably still keep doing what we're doing.
All right.
You know, this is not new. Roy Cornett come in here 5-10 years ago. We discussed this, and you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying then it was an issue, and
I think Wadeco was here as well.
Ed Cole was here, and it's finally. I'm glad the mayor and the judge and it's finally to go ahead and start doing something.
Yeah.
We think that when we get the test levels from this report that we'll
They
probably
skyrocket.
have to put up signs around exposed creeks in that area, do not wade or swim.
Oh, wow.
Bob, how long do you think it'd take to run a line if we got started on that from
About 2 years.
say?
Really? 2 years?
Yeah. It'll take about,
Right-of-way acquisition.
yeah, about 6 months for plans and right-of-way acquisition, and probably a year and a half for construction. That's a long way.
We've got relatively, for cost projection, Bob's done some pretty detailed engineering for cost, but final design has not been done.
Right.
So we intend to, since we own the sewer company, we have a dog in this fight, and wanted you all to be aware that that this is an issue that
Time to do something.
time to do something with.
You need a motion, Mayor?
Yes, ma'am, please.
Motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the resolution. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We just want to hand around the invitation. All the council is invited to the September 1st groundbreaking for the Great Crossing High School Home of the Warhawks.
Yes.
September 1st at 10 o'clock. So want y'all to have that. Also, I wanted the council to know that I've shared some documents with the Finance Committee, and they were very confidential on a certain day and less confidential a few days later. But in addition to the very exciting news about the new high school on Betsy Way, you will very quickly learn of an elementary school that will be located on East Main Street Extended. So if you don't make the curve, but you just keep going straight, before you get to the bypass, there will be an elementary school, and shortly to follow after the elementary school, a middle school.
In that same area?
Same lot,
Did you say before the bypass or you cross over the bypass?
before the bypass.
Before that lot that's there.
I think so.
Oh, okay.
So East Main Street Extended is going to be transformed with both investment and appearance and two schools. There is a traffic light at the bypass. It probably means that eventually we may have to do something with the intersection at the bypass. I mention it to the full council because what I sent to the Finance Committee is the state has legal restrictions from being able to pay for right-of-way work. I think it's real convenient that the state's not school's not legally allowed to do it, so someone else gets to do it in their stead. The county agreed to pay for the 2 entrances off Betsy Way, and the school has asked us to consider, not to consider, but ask us for a commitment to pay for the 2 entrances on East Main Street Extended. We made that commitment, obviously subject to council approval of a future budget. We think that those 2 entrances collectively will be between $50,000 and $60,000. The other thing that we will work with the superintendent and our chief of police on going forward is East Main Street might get a little bit narrow with the amount of activity that we're talking about. So I don't know that it would be mandatory for the first elementary school, but there will be a point in time when we'll need to look at probably widening East Main Street Extended by a foot on either side.
You'll have to. There'll be no choice.
Yeah, you'll have to.
It's on the side that I'm thinking you'll have to.
It's the Drake property, if I'm not mistaken.
Farm.
Yeah.
Is East Main Street Extended a city road, not a state road?
City Road.
Good.
And we would anticipate making these improvements to East Main Extended from where we now make the turn to the second school entrance. And we wouldn't go beyond that point. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Kim Brooks. I live in Harmony Ridge.
Yes, ma'am.
You're talking, this is the first I've heard of this. You're talking right across the street from where the new apartment buildings.
It's on this side of the bypass.
Right, across from the bypass. Is that right?
No, it's before that.
Yeah, it's
Before
It's a
that.
block,
Okay.
it's a block away
Women's
from
Mill
there.
is, I think, where you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
this is
Do you know where the
down
little
the
Shell station is in the corner?
Yes.
That's East Main Extended.
Okay.
Where the old rock quarry.
Yeah.
I was getting a little
Before
freaked
you
out
get
because
to
our
the
traffic's
bypass.
already.
No, it's not
bad.
before you're at.
Is it after the railroad track?
It's over the railroad track.
Over the railroad track before you get to the bypass on the
Okay.
left.
I'm with you now. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Where all that tobacco is out on the field.
Yeah.
Mayor, just a
Okay.
thought, but that road is, there's some pretty hilly spots as well. It might create some blind spots. Elevation changes might be something else that need to be looked at.
Yeah. I just wanted to let the council know that I think this is great news for the community, but it is adding a real burden to a street that we own, and we already own a couple that have real pressures on them.
That's a very poor street now, but there's not that much traffic on it. It's kind of a cut-through use now, so we'll have issues to deal with, but.
I think it really bodes well for that end of town.
Yeah.
It should be really attractive. Let's see. Also wanted the council to know and to thank Ms. Tackett. All the Derby estate easements are signed. And Ms. Tackett and Judy Giannacio went out on their own and hoofed it around that subdivision and got every easement done. Thank you, Con.
You're
Good
welcome.
job.
I was gonna ask that on council comments, so that's done.
That's done,
Well, no, I didn't have a
okay.
question, but I'll ask it.
Let's see here. Several council members have heard department heads talking about a potential vehicle lease program that we're looking at. Finance Committee, Stacy Clark found this opportunity, brought in the company for the Finance Committee to talk to, and they were intrigued enough to where we brought them back to town to have a bigger presentation. And it's essentially a light-duty vehicle leasing program where the company would take care of everything from purchase to disposal to maintenance, projecting lower cost and a newer vehicle fleet with help us to budget. After we had a pretty productive second meeting with the company, we invited their representatives to come in and meet with our department heads. And most of our department heads were pretty excited about the program. We're now giving them more detailed information about our fleet so they can make a harder proposal. I was surprised, folks, to learn we have bought so many new vehicles and we've tried to upgrade our fleet that I was disappointed to learn we still have 17 light-duty vehicles with 100,000 miles or more. So we make progress, but a program like this, we think, can get all of our departments on a more current basis and save us money. So I just want to let you know that the Finance Committee and I think Police Committee's now heard about it just a little bit. And it would be for everything except our larger duty, everything that doesn't require a CDL. So a garbage truck or a fire truck would not be eligible, but all of our other vehicles would. And we'll learn more about that. KLC conference coming up. If anybody wants to register, just let us know.
That was the first week of October, wasn't it, Mayor?
Yes.
First week of October.
Oh, vacation, okay. Well, I'd rather be there. Hey, on the opportunity to visit Harshaw Train, to look at some of the energy savings, so far, we've got that scheduled for the 31st, and so far, Millie and Polly and Connie and Chuck
Field trip.
have signed on to go. So anybody that would like to join us, they're just going to feed us in the office there, and we'll be in and out probably, I think 10:30 to 2 is when it's scheduled. We have started something that you all have brought to us repeatedly, and we started trying to look at it in a bigger Lemons Mill is Old Lemons Mill. Old Oxford. I'm getting on the old road. Old Oxford. Where you all have asked, we have a bid out for striping, and that's been let. We're going to do that striping. When we meet with the planners, we realize that Old Oxford has 1,500 homes platted.
Huge.
For it. And it's substandard today. It was a substandard county road that became a city street. And there are 1,500 homes platted in that area. And we've had a preliminary engineering study done. And if we do a nice fix of Old Oxford, it is a $4 million project.
Oh, my.
The right fix is $4 million.
Now, that includes shoulders that are safe, and a bike lane and meeting current standards.
Well, there's a bridge out there too,
Bridge,
a one-lane bridge.
not to mention a bridge.
Okay.
So it's a very expensive project, but we're becoming aware that it's something we're gonna have to figure out. We don't have an option but to figure that one out.
Can I ask, this might be a dumb question and it might be moot, but when the city took that over, I'm sure that there was planning and, everybody knew that the growth was going that way. So when we took it over as a city road, I know the perspective wasn't thought of then, but the county probably should have helped with the widening of that road in order to give us that road. Would they help?
Yeah. See, I don't think they see it so much as they gave us the road. We kind of grew and annexed it.
We took it over.
Connie, we've asked planning and zoning and our engineers and Andrew and others to help us think through this and who we can get to help pay for this road. There's been a lot of development along Old Oxford. Some of it, some of the development is separated from Old Oxford by a relatively narrow strip of land, which exempts that property owner from contributing. I don't know if we at some point start discussing off-site impact fees to look at how do we help growth pay for growth?
Toll road.
Not-
Threw it out.
But we just wanted you all to know that that's kind of at the top of our discussion list, and we don't have an answer right now, but we have got stuff planned that we can't say grace over, and we're gonna have to do it.
Trying
Mayor-
to come up with a striping plan, but it turns out you can't stripe gravel.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any way to incorporate some type of a privilege fee like the water company's done with some of their sewer lines. Is it just sewer lines?
We just do it for sewer.
Yeah. You know, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure some other communities in Florida or California have dealt with issues like this, but
It's just a different form of toll booth.
it is. It is.
Well,
But, I mean, that, you know, you're right. I mean,
Some way or another.
that's one issue. Lemons Mill is an issue. This building is an issue. The communication systems with 911 are a very expensive issue.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a lot of big issues.
we're stacking them up.
Yeah, the business park and the expansion of the business park. I mean, there's just a lot of what seem to be needs. There, you know, there's wants out there too,
But you have to prioritize needs and then take them as, make sure this is the priority of what we need to do, and then you
Right.
work on them as a priority.
right, right.
The other, as you think of Old Oxford, the other thing that's really interesting when you look at a map of that area, what may be even more help to us than fixing Old Oxford first would be if you can visualize Lexus Way
Mm-hmm.
over from Champion to I-75 to Cherry Blossom. If that could go one more country block down to Old Oxford, then all of these rooftops that we're talking about in Old Oxford, if they wanted to, could go toward Cherry Blossom in a totally different route and have Cherry Blossom and I-75, rather than having to travel back down Old Oxford into the V, which is all the congestion, and then go back out.
But there's a plan to improve Connector Road, the state road, right?
Yes.
You know, I don't know. I understand what you're saying, and I think I've seen maybe a preliminary plan or something that showed some form of a layout, but there's still gonna be people that wanna get to town, that wanna get to Georgetown.
Right.
You know, and we're still got a problem. We do.
Both fixes are necessary,
Yeah.
but
It's the $4 million cost on Old Oxford. Is that from one end to the other, or is it just, does it cover all of Old Oxford, that $4 million
Goes
cost?
almost all the way to Newtown. It does not go all the way to Newtown. It goes to the end of the city maintenance, which
Isn't that 62?
it doesn't go that far. City,
it stops
it
before you
seems to
get
be
Cynthia.
coming-
Right before
Right.
Pleasant Valley?
Pleasant Valley's in the city, so it'd be after Pleasant Valley.
Okay, so
Right
it's
after
right
Pleasant
past
Valley.
that before you get to 62.
You got it.
From Connector.
Yeah.
Connector down.
And it's all city street.
Yeah, just so we all know what we're dealing with. This is all just for your information right now.
Can I ask one more question?
Oh, yes,
Just
sir.
That maybe I'll forget about later, so maybe Andrew or somebody can remember this. But in Lexington, there are different tax levels depending on where you live,
Different service.
different service. And I just wonder, is that a mechanism? You know, I know nobody likes to talk about that word, that three-letter word tax, but I mean, that is the reality on how we do pay for things.
Mhm.
And is that a mechanism, Andrew?
We're gonna look at every possible funding scenario that we've got. My sense is that Lexington has a different authority than we do in regard to urban service boundaries and
Yeah.
tax rates.
Yeah.
I think they're unique in that way. Like, I don't think your average city has the right to have different tax rates for
Different groups,
different boundaries.
That's why they can have at-large council members.
Exactly. They're just under a completely different authority
Okay.
than other cities. But again, we'll look at all the possibilities of what could be done.
And where this grows from is an effort for us to sit down with planning and zoning. We want to be better able to answer your all's questions that you ask us all the time, and we don't give you adequate answers. And we're trying to get better answers by working with our engineers in planning and zoning and understand how's all this going to work and how's it going to fit together when it gets built out. And are we going to be proud of what we did when it all gets built out? So we've looked at 4 or 5 different problem areas and decided where we needed to look first. if we don't talk about this one, it's one of our biggest.
And in saying that and moving forward, when we were talking about the new elementary and the new middle school, in those plans and in that perspective, we're already talking about having to widen the road. Can't that be a part of it in the very beginning? And not put that off knowing that it's gonna have to be done? That be implemented?
I think it can, Connie, and for us, that's gonna be our cost. It's just a question of when do we want
Okay.
to take that cost? And once the school does a final design, and then our engineers can see what they've done, then I would think the finance committee may want to talk with the council about when we time that improvement. Or do we wait until we have a council room full of angry parents to do what we need to do?
Well, that's what I'm trying to, yeah, I agree. You know ahead of time that it's gonna have to happen, so it looks like that we need to go ahead and future plan it, so that's a good idea.
Cardinal Way is another one of those.
Absolutely.
Yeah, sure is.
Yeah, we don't want to do a cardinal way.
Yeah.
I think learn from what we know. If we can do
What we
something
didn't
better.
do.
Our Old Lemons Mill specs are being approved by the state. We can't start until they sign off on it, but we're told that that process is working well. So I expect Old Lemons Mill Road improvement from the bridge to the bypass and all of our street paving to begin right away. We've given a notice to proceed to Hamilton and Hinkle, so we should see paving pretty quickly.
I spoke to Mr. Anderson right before the meeting started, and he had planned on coming back and providing you all with pictures and progress updates. But essentially, his message was they fixed it immediately. The very next day, they put that channel. We're talking about Amerson Farms development, Harmony Ridge, and they believe when they put that channel in there, immediately following that they resolved any issues. So more or less, they're looking to us to see, do we have any more questions? Do we have any more concerns?
It hasn't rained a whole lot.
Well, it rained
since
today.
then, But not enough to,
Much.
you wait till this weekend.
Actually,
That's what they're here for.
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it went on the agenda, but that's what,
Hurricane.
you're Linda, right?
Yes.
You're the one with the dip in the back. You actually have, Mr. Anderson came to talk to me. He'd watched the council meeting, and he showed me where you do have a reservoir in the back of your, that's collecting water. But is it better, or have we not had any rain?
We haven't had any rain since then.
Okay.
I mean, today was our first rain, but the ground was so dry. I mean, it just soaked that in, so it wasn't. We really haven't had enough to tell. By this weekend, I think
Yes. You'll tell
we
the
should
story
be
this
able to
weekend.
tell.
Yeah,
Okay.
you will.
Well, y'all know where to reach me.
We'd sure like to know if it's better. After that last council meeting, we didn't have to contact Mr. Anderson. He actually contacted us and had watched the tape, and he contacted Ms. Ames and came in City Hall and wanted to, it sounds like he wants to do the right thing, and if that doesn't happen, then I think we're more than willing to have him in here to talk about it.
That was a communication
Yes,
error
ma'am.
on my part.
I will say, they did come in, I don't know if it was the next day, but rather quickly. They came in, they added more rock, they, I don't know what they put down, I guess it was seeded.
Like a mat or something
Mat.
that rolled out.
Yeah,
And
That's good.
it's, yeah, the grass
Grass
blades are
come up
starting to
quicker
come
that
in,
way.
so good.
Good.
Yeah, he came and talked to me, probably the same day maybe that he talked to the mayor shortly thereafter, and he seemed like that he wanted to do a better job, or get it right. And so, I told him, okay, but he told me they'd already started moving some dirt around and fixing some things by the time he came to talk to me, so they did get on it pretty quickly.
Yes.
So if it rains, like they say it's gonna rain, let us know.
Yeah, we'll be able to tell.
That'd be great.
Yes, ma'am?
I know they still haven't done anything about the trees and stuff that are growing in the existing fence.
Okay.
Pass that on. He did mention that when he came in.
Okay.
But I did want the council to know, and for the residents, to show that Mr. Anderson did show up, and I think he's making a good effort to meet our concern.
Good.
Mark, did you have a question?
No, sir, I'm good.
Also, just a comment to reinforce what we've talked about in the 2.5 years that we've been here together. We've had a couple of executive sessions here lately. When we do those not often. But I just wanted to reinforce to the council and anybody watching that we understand the legal privilege of using an executive session, and we try and use it correctly. And I think just all of us need to help each other make sure that we go into executive sessions for the right reason, and that while we're in there, we don't accidentally stray off the topic of why we went into executive session. So it's just a reinforcement for all of us. And then last, let me say thank you to all of the council members for your kind words and thoughts for my sister's memorial service, and the flowers the council sent were beautiful. And I appreciated from hearing folks on Facebook and in person, and all that was very nice. Thank you very much. So, who was it that signed up for public comments earlier? But, oh, Sean. Yes, I think we're now ready for Sean.
Agent Mayor and Council, I asked Sean to come with me tonight because he's heading up the telephone project, in case you got any questions on that. But the first item tonight is approval of purchase order to Unified Technologies, the low bid amount of $21,698.44 for a new phone system for our building at 1000 West Main. Our current phone system is no longer supported, parts no longer available, and cannot be expanded. The new system will provide phone service to all 5 of our departments that will be located at our new building, and we had allowed them in our budget in the amount of $35,000 for this project.
Motion.
A second.
I'll second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nice job on the telephone system, Sean.
Next is approval of professional services in the amount of $58,675 to Bluegrass Engineers for the wastewater treatment plant capacity study. Our KPDES permit for wastewater number 1 requires us to begin planning for capacity upgrades when our plant reaches 75% of capacity. Right now, we're around 73%, so it's time to start looking at that. I've asked the engineer to look at 4 different scenarios for feasibility and cost, and this will allow our GMWSS staff, the board, and the council to make an informed decision when the time comes to begin what will most likely be a multi-million-dollar project. And we had allowed in our budget in the amount of $50,000 for this study.
Okay. Bob, when you give the engineers different scenarios, are those different growth scenarios?
No, it's different scenarios of how to treat the growth. Do we expand wastewater number 1? Do we reroute some sewage to wastewater number 2? And what does that do to wastewater number 2? Do we expand the ring that's at the wastewater plant? Does that get enough capacity? Or do we just need to build a whole new ditch and clarifiers?
Okay, so it's more strategic in terms of how you use your big assets.
Right, looking at the cost, how much capacity does it buy us for the money we're laying out?
Okay,
Motion, Mayor.
thank you.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, and approval of professional services amount of $124,440 to Bluegrass Engineers for design, bidding services, and construction administration for the new distribution and collection center to be located at 1010 West Main Street. The engineering fee is based on a percent of construction costs in accordance with the Kentucky Rural Development Utility Program fee schedule with a total of 26% discount. The first phase will include site prep, construction of retaining wall, and the construction of a new approximately 4,380 square feet facility for our distribution department. Phase 2 will be presented later, and that'll be for collections department. And our budget has allowed them in the amount of $600,000 for this project.
I'll make a motion for that.
Second, Mayor.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Bob, is this on the new lot you bought?
Right, the lot across Hillside that we bought last year.
When you can clean it up.
Yeah.
prevent
Where
it.
it's all cleaned up.
Yeah, we're working on it. It's growing faster than.
It is.
That's right.
What will be your long-term plans for your current distribution center?
We would, we would hope to sell it and offset some of our costs, but we can talk about that.
Yeah, because that's real nicely located for our interest in Water Street.
Mhm.
Let's have that
talk.
conversation.
Really cool.
We just found some
Kinda hard to buy something you already own, though.
Well,
So,
Right.
Hard time.
I know.
do we have a motion?
Yes.
We
yes,
do.
Yes,
And a
I made it.
second?
yes.
Good. All in favor, say aye.
Opposed.
Opposed? Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, that's all I have.
I appreciate your work with us on this pollution issue and the way we solve it for our citizens.
Been working on it for 15 years, don't need to stop now.
That's
True.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Item 8 on your agenda, 8A, is first reading of the property tax / motor vehicle tax ordinance. Always, and Ms. Tackett, thank you for sponsoring this. What we are recommending to you tonight is that our property tax rate remain unchanged. We currently have the lowest property tax rate in the state. We recommend that it stay the 6.5 cents per hundred. Because of growth in assessed values, our assessed values in Georgetown grew from $2,503,000,000. No, that is net new property. You did the math. Stacey did the math for me, so I don't have to confuse myself. The net new property over the last year was $72,591,000 in assessments. So if we keep the same property tax rate that we have, we'll generate new revenue of $47,000. And the county just set their property tax rate at 6.5 cents per hundred. If we keep ours unchanged, it will remain the lowest in the state. And that's at least our recommendation for you. We do have first reading of that ordinance tonight so that we can have second reading at our next regularly scheduled meeting. Please.
An ordinance providing for and making the real property, personal property, motor vehicle, and watercraft tax levy for city purposes for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018 inclusive. Sponsor, Councilmember Connie Tackett. Whereas the City Council for the City of Georgetown, Kentucky is required by KRS 92.280 to enact by ordinance each year a tax levy on all property, personal property, motor vehicles, and watercraft. Now therefore be it ordained by the City Council for the City of Georgetown, Kentucky as follows. Section 1, that the following tax levy is hereby made for city purposes for the City of Georgetown, Kentucky for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30, 2018 inclusive to wit. For the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2017 and ending June 30th, 2018 inclusive, there is hereby made a tax levy of 6.5 cents, 0.0650 on each $100 of assessed real property, 6.5 cents on each $100 of assessed personal property, and 16.8 cents on each $100 of assessed motor vehicles and watercraft, which tax proceeds shall be designated to the general fund for the general operation of city government. All matters related to the payment of taxes imposed on motor vehicles and watercraft hereunder shall be in accordance with KRS Chapter 134.800. Section 3, that upon all taxes for real property and personal property levied herewith, which are unpaid on January 1, 2018, there shall begin to accrue, attach, and be added from said date a flat penalty of 15% onto the total amount of said taxes that due and payable through June 31st, 2018, after which the flat penalty shall be 20%. Additionally, tax bills not paid before March 1, 2018 shall have added to them interest at the rate of 1% per month or fraction of a month until said taxes are paid. The penalty and interest as provided herein shall be added to said unpaid taxes and collected by the city finance director and/or city clerk. Should the real or personal property tax herein become delinquent, the city financial officer, the city clerk, and the city attorney are authorized to file suit to collect all delinquent taxes plus court costs and expenses, including a reasonable attorney fee incurred by reason of the delinquency. Section 4, if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, or phrase of this ordinance is held unconstitutional or otherwise invalid, such infirmity shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of this ordinance. Section 5, all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance are hereby repealed. Section 6, this ordinance shall take effect after its passage and publication according to law. Publicly introduced and read for the first time August 28, 2017.
Thank you. And as our normal practice, we don't vote on first reading, but we will have that back on, when's our next one?
September 11th.
September the 11th. That's a date that kind of,
Remember that.
it kind of sticks in your mind, doesn't it? Okay, the next item on the agenda is, council's aware of the long-running concern about the state of Kentucky's retirement system, their public retirement system. KERS, the Kentucky Employee Retirement System, is, I think, currently funded at 17%. It's considered one of the most poorly funded pension systems in America. There's an effort underway by local governments across Kentucky, both Kentucky Association of Counties and the Kentucky League of Cities, to separate CERS, the County Employee Retirement System, from KERS. CERS, that we're a part of, because we have to pay our full amount every year, CERS is funded somewhere around 60%, low 60%. Very healthy compared to KERS. So there's been an effort for some time to separate the two systems, let KERS, let the General Assembly correct KERS, and let the CERS, which has been properly funded for a long time, go ahead and operate on its own. So most cities and counties, or a lot of cities and counties, have passed a resolution in support of that effort, and we bring you that tonight. We'll read the resolution and then be happy to take any questions you have.
Whereas the city of Georgetown, Kentucky has invested in the county employee retirement system, whereas the county employees retirement system is currently funded at 62%, a higher funded ratio than it was prior to passage of Senate Bill 2, whereas the Kentucky employees retirement system is the worst funded system in the U.S. and was noted by R.V. Coons, Inc. as being set to undergo financial hurdles of persistent funding shortfalls, elevated contribution levels, unsustainable payout ratios, and in the worst case scenario, the potential for the complete depletion of the asset base. Whereas total assets of the county employees retirement system are about $12 billion, 73% of the total Kentucky retirement system assets. Whereas administrative costs of the Kentucky retirement systems have increased 245% since 2000, and the county employees retirement system pays 63% of those costs. Whereas the county employees retirement system is on an upward funding trajectory, and an independent actuary predicts it will be 100% funded by 2045 without any structural changes to the plan. Whereas separation of the county employees retirement system would result in the creation of a new 9-member board whose sole responsibility would be the management of the county employees retirement system. Whereas the current 17-member Kentucky Retirement System Board of Trustees has only 6 seats for county employee retirement system representatives. Whereas separation of the county employee retirement system from the Kentucky retirement system would mean local control of local pensions and would ensure the need of the county employees retirement system are met so it can continue its current path of growth for years to come. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Georgetown supports maintaining the current structure and benefits of the county employees retirement system while separating it from the Kentucky retirement systems.
Thank you.
You know, there's a model ordinance that the league provided us.
So I'd either take a question or a motion.
I'm gonna motion.
Motion. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. And it's a complex issue. Whether or not this actually happens during the pitch and reform sessions that are being discussed and planned now, we don't know, but we thought we'd weigh in.
And Mayor, this impacts the city employees as well as the county employees.
That's right.
Yeah.
And all of our joint agencies, anybody that's not a state of Kentucky employee but is in the government sector, it's under CERS.
But they call it county employees retirement system.
Right.
Because it's Scott
That's it.
County, Fayette
Right.
County.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's us.
City lives in the county.
So we have a motion and a second. If there are no further questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We also have completing the multi-step process that we had. We now have advertised our electric franchise ordinance for the required amount of time, and now we must accept those who have bid on our electric, who want to do work in the city of Georgetown. And those are, of course, Kentucky Utilities, Bluegrass, RECC, and Owen, RECC. And all three of those have bid. What we're doing, two separate ordinances. We completed the ordinance that sets the rate. Now, this ordinance simply says we want these people to be able to do business in Georgetown. First reading.
An ordinance awarding an electric franchise. Summary. Awards the bid of the non-exclusive electric franchise established in ordinance 2017-012 to Kentucky Utilities, Owen Electric, and Bluegrass Energy. 2. Authorizes the mayor to sign the electric franchise agreements. 3. Provides for repeal of inconsistent laws, severability of provisions, and an effective date of September 18, 2017 upon passage and publication. The full text of this ordinance is available for examination in the city clerk's office, 100 North Court Street, Georgetown, Kentucky, 40324 at www.georgetownky.gov. Introduced in public read for the first time August 28, 2017.
Good, and the timing should fall neatly. Our meeting is on the 11th, then we can publish a few days later, and we have to have it in place by the 17th. So, and I think the effective date of all this is the 18th. So we will have fallen within those parameters. Item 9 on your agenda is a municipal order accepting Cherry Hill as a city street and including it on the official city map. A word of explanation to the council. We're going to start seeing more of these because we're trying to neaten up the process about when is it ours, when is it somebody else's. And we want this process to include notification to the council. And Ben Krebs, as the engineer at Planning and Zoning, has been working with us to help us go back and clean up some things where city streets may not have been dedicated timely. The definition of a street in our ordinance is the street and the sidewalk and all the signs. That is the street. It is a total a package. And we've asked that Planning and Zoning be more timely in bringing us streets for approval. And as Ben is finding these, he's going to start bringing us these. So we're going to start seeing more of this kind of activity as we try and tighten up this process so that we don't go so long between hearing about streets being assigned to us.
We do take care of, or have been taking care of Cherry Hill, haven't we?
We have been, we've been pushing snow. We've been doing everything as if it's ours. It's just, our records have got to match what we're doing. And Ben is helping us. we're listening to council concerns, and we're trying to work with our agencies to help us clean it up and be able to give you all better answers when you ask questions. So there is an MO for that. Motion's been made and seconded. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That carries. Good. Wow, we made it through a bunch of stuff and a bunch of mayor comments.
Well, you passed your time.
Oh, we missed the over-under.
I didn't put no money on it, it's okay.
It's okay. It beat some of our earlier performances. Let's see, for council comments, Mark, would you like to start?
I'm good.
You're good? Chuck?
I just want to follow up a little bit on Old Oxford. Is there some way we can put it into planning and zoning to where they have to require a road would handle the development that they approve? I'm surprised they don't look at that already.
And that's that's where we're trying to get to in this conversation, Chuck. Can there be, how do we structure this so that new growth pays for new growth? And we don't affect existing citizens fixing new growth-related problems. And it could be impact fees, off-site impact fees.
If we do impact fees, would it be applied equally across the whole city? Or can you do it by the road that services, like we have to?
We're asking ourselves those questions and doing a lot of homework right now.
If we have 1,500 lots planned there, if we implement a $2,000 impact fee on each lot, that's $3 million to pay for the road.
Yeah,
Just a lot of research we need to do. The folks at P&Z are just as concerned about what do we do and what powers do we have. So
Chuck, it's been your all's questions that have kind of driven us to have these conversations, and we're trying to understand it better so that when you ask a reasonable question, we can give you a straight answer. And we all would have thought that all that would be in place right now and it'd just be routine, but
there are some requirements in place, but they're not that. I mean, they have to widen the road and make it wide enough to accommodate the traffic only on their road frontage. So going beyond that is further than we've ever gone. That doesn't mean we can't do it though. We just need to know what the legal limits are of that, what the boundaries are, what parameters we can set.
Well, the fact is our tax rate is the lowest in the state, and it doesn't support these kind of projects as it is.
no, we hope there are some innovative ways to do this that are fair to people, but we don't have all the answers yet.
Well, I'm looking forward to see what you bring us.
Yes, sir, and you're all's homework too. We're interested in that.
Maybe there
as
needs
well.
to be a workshop with planning and zoning at some point. I mean, you know, we've talked about a few things. We've talked about building criteria and how some buildings we don't think look like they should look to be in very prominent places.
Yeah.
And maybe some of these things can be discussed collectively.
David, we actually think that we want to understand our city issues and where our real pressure points are now. Then we'd like to stir in some of the county stuff and then take it to our legislative bodies for exactly that purpose. So we know that we're not ready to bring it to you now because we can just echo the questions.
Right.
But as soon as we get some ideas, then I think a workshop with planning and zoning would be a great idea. With the attitude that we're getting from planning and zoning right now is what's not working to your satisfaction and how can we help you fix it? So
Yeah. You know, and it's a balancing act because we can't do things to stifle growth.
Right.
But
You
you gotta
know,
be able
because-
to maintain
Yeah,
it.
maintain.
That's right. That's exactly right.
it's got to be well balanced. And then I think it's our responsibility, David, we find the right balance, and then we tell people, here are the rules. And we don't ding them to death after we say, these are the rules.
That's true.
That's what I think frustrates people is
Or like
when we.
HOA, this is what you got it responsible for, but you change it in the middle, it doesn't work.
But then again, we don't want it to fall back on us for how it is right now, because
It's
we're
like-
not designing and planning a little better based on what we know.
I think that's our biggest flaw, is that, because it, I mean, it grows so quick. And, I mean, actually, I had literally written down what Chuck said to do for my comment, is that we have the lowest taxes and lowest rate, but I mean, if we have to, you know, pay for this, and the developers should have to, you know, put in something, because they make a fortune here. I mean, they make a fortune. So, and I know you have to balance it, and it's a balancing act, but, you know, we do have the lowest tax rate, so something's gotta balance and give.
Anything else, Chuck? Nope. Thank you. Connie?
I just have one question. Now that we have the easement signed, have you all already sent out the construction bids? I was asked, you know, where we were in the process now.
We will do that. Well, I should take that back. I'll have to follow up with Kyle on that. I do not believe we have bid it out yet, but no, we've got design.
Okay.
You know, we got designs, and all those signed easements are on my desk for me to sign. So we'll get it bid.
That's good. All right. Well, we're moving along, which is, we're a lot further than we could have been or would have been. Just let me know when you put them out the bid, because they'll be asking me. And then the other thing, you mentioned Lemonsville Road and the widening of it and that kind of thing. What about the bridge? Have we heard anything else about the bridge, or is that kind of a moot point now too?
We haven't heard anything good about the bridge.
Okay.
We've been around the barn 2 or 3 times about the bridge and thought we could make it a demonstration project. And
Horse is dead?
that horse is pretty much dead. I've left the building.
Okay.
on that
Horse is
project.
dead, you got off the horse, right?
Yes, we got
Okay.
off the horse, and we'll look at constructing conventional repairs.
Okay.
Okay, you're good. David?
You know, just to kind of touch on what Polly and Chuck were talking about, you know, I remember when, I guess it was in 2007, 8, 9, you know, when things kind of turned around, and all of a sudden the developers were turning over properties to banks, Mayor, and you were probably in the banking world at that time, and you know what I'm talking about. You know, there are some that are doing rather well, but there aren't that many that are left, and it's the really big ones that are left. And, you know, it's just a tough issue. The one thing that I did want to mention, Mayor, is, and Andrew's been helping, and I think code enforcement's been helping, but there's a detention pond, kind of behind Kentucky Bank out on the corner of Connector Road and where it comes into Cherry Blossom. And I know there was an attempt to clean it up, and it was kind of half-hearted, you might say. And I don't think we did it. Do you, Andrew? So anyway, I've caught a lot of comments, you might say.
A lot of flack.
Yeah.
A lot of why.
Flack. Because this has been something that's been kind of lingering for a while. You know, it was addressed, and then, you know, it kind of went away for a while. Now it's kind of come back, and there's quite a bit of frustration, you might say, in that area. So anyway, Andrew's helping with it, but I just wanted to bring it to your all's attention that if you all hear from anybody, because that's been talked about, that you all may hear from some folks, that at least you know that Andrew's working on it, and I think code enforcement's working on it. And hopefully we'll get some resolve this time.
Property's changed hands, which is part of the issue.
Yeah.
The property has multiple owners.
Yeah, well, not anymore.
Not anymore?
Not
Oh,
anymore.
it's,
That's the problem, is it had multiple owners, but now the people who have bought the big lot on the corner,
Yeah.
I don't know
Bought
if they were
that.
convinced, they were convinced to buy that as part of the deal, so. But we're working on it. Hopefully we can get out there and get it fixed.
So if the owners, whoever they may be, don't clean it up, then Public Works cleans it up, and then there's assessment, just so you'll know, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Then you have the, what becomes the ultimate problem, which is something that our HOA ordinance will someday address, but when you slap a lien on a piece of property that is a detention basin, how do you ever expect to get that money back?
Well, can you not do a blanket type lien where it includes the
Property
rest of the
side.
property?
Yeah.
I don't
A
know.
judgment lien that attaches
We
to
could
their
try
property.
that, but without either state law or a local
All right,
law
all
that
right.
gives us authority.
Well, here would be your leverage. You know, if somebody owes the city of Georgetown outstanding money, we don't have to issue permits
Got
or,
it.
we got
Licenses
leverage.
or permits of any type.
Yeah,
So we'll eventually get
yeah,
there.
okay.
David, I was in on that a little bit because I was talking to Mark Solsky at Kentucky Bank. And apparently the new owner came over to him and said, I heard you're willing to help pay for the cost. And he gave him a bill for $1,250. And Mark said, no, I'm not going to pay you that much. So I don't know.
A lot.
I think Mark ended up doing some of the work themselves for
Yeah.
Kentucky Bank. At the same time, I was with Nathan Billings. You guys remember Nathan, that did the attorney?
Yeah, the HOA guy.
He was there too, and we were talking about this LLC thing, because remember that lot came up and they had put it into an LLC's name?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Nathan told me that if an LLC gets disbanded, then the property goes back to the members of that LLC, which was the bank. So that's probably why they talked these people into taking it, because they would have ended up with the liability. The bank would have ended up with the liability of the property.
Yeah, Chuck, the interesting thing, if the responsible parties have been taking care of that detention pond for the past 12 years, it'd be a heck of a lot more than
Oh, yeah, it'd just be
$1,200,
mowing.
you know?
Yeah.
So they're way ahead of the game right now. And I'm sure you understand what I'm talking about. The other thing that I would say is the Findlay 5K went off rather well. There was a huge turnout for it. The weather couldn't have been better.
It's spectacular.
Yeah, and the police department was obviously involved, and I know the fire department was involved, and Public Works was involved, and probably many other city departments were, and it was really good to see that type of support and turnout.
It's a community event on that.
It is.
Community event, the party on the square, and all the above.
Yeah.
It was a great weekend.
So that was good.
Good.
I think that's it, Mayor.
Thank you.
Two things.
Yes, sir.
506 or 8 Hill Street. There's a gentleman has a driveway, and as every time the garbage trucks turn, they tore about that much of his blacktop out of his driveway.
Is that in the second block, Marvin?
Yeah, it's a hill.
Past Montgomery?
Crossover, yeah. Go over down to
Okay.
Kentucky.
Because Hill Street runs behind my house.
He stopped me the other day. I was over there mowing his glass.
Okay.
And PCA is having their annual car show on September the 16th. They're asking to have that street as you come in, like we do, blocked off with some barricades from 9 till 3.
On what date, Marvin?
September the 16th on a Saturday. And I have to get that through the council to do that, I'm assuming.
I think, don't they have to fill out paperwork, Trace?
Not on that there.
Not on that?
That's not like a 5K. We always approve it and just let it go.
Yeah.
September 16th, what hours, Marvin?
9 till 6. They start their show at 10 and done at 2, but give them an hour before and an hour after to clean up.
You said 9 to 3.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
9 to 6.
9 to 3.
9 to 3.
You messed me up
This will
over
be
there.
a long car show.
Well, they're having food fair and they're doing a bunch of other things up there. So.
We owe the council the homework on that street and what their ability is to alter it.
Yeah, we did.
So we'll respond to that as well. Anything else, Marvin?
What is that? What is the name of that street up there, Chuck?
Christian.
Christian
Way.
Christian Way. Yeah.
Is that what's the name of it?
Yeah.
That's the only street I got to name while I was mayor.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Why didn't you pick some grand boulevard?
Mayor,
Well, Christian Church.
they like to know if Robert brings some barricades like he did last year out to block off both ends of it. But I'll take about 4 of them.
He can do
That's
that.
right.
Thank you.
You could have called it Jingle Tingle Way.
See, I wanted something like that.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
On that
I didn't
note.
mean to bring it over.
Is there any update on the parking situation for the Galvins, Water Street, all that area? Had
I
somebody
hear
ask
Bob's
me.
going to have a building that we can. I'm sorry, not to be flip, Polly. We don't have those
Nothing.
recommendations for you yet.
Just busy.
Because I thought that dentist office is going to be opening fairly soon.
Yeah, they have 0 parking.
I know, I have nothing.
Can I ask a question that relates to that? Is there no parking across the street from the local feed? Didn't Karen, you brought that up one night, didn't you? We've got signage there. Is there?
We've got signage that says no parking
This
on
side of the
one
street.
side of the street, but it doesn't
Should there
park there.
be? I mean, I'm confused, because sometimes there's parking
Yeah.
down through there, and it's,
Sometimes people don't read the sign.
They're not supposed to, they're not supposed to park there.
Not wide enough to accommodate.
is that the deal?
Everybody does park
If,
there.
if cars are parked on both sides, we ain't getting a fire truck.
No,
that's
you're
true.
not.
No.
But they
They're
do,
not,
I
they
know.
do.
And actually, if they park on both sides, you can only take
Every time I
one
walk around
car
there, they do.
through.
You have to wait
Yeah.
for somebody at the other end to snake through
So,
and find a spot.
I have had several meetings with KU folks,
Okay.
trying to get parking for our new code enforcement, building and electrical. We've worked on that, and we're working on maybe getting that whole parking lot where the metal building is at the end of the
Yes.
street,
Oh, yeah.
turned into
yeah.
a parking lot.
Yeah, yeah, that.
That's a little bit of a longer term issue, but I also asked, could we bump out Water Street near where the electrical plant is?
Station is.
Yeah.
Now, give us more parking, and they were very receptive to
Oh,
the idea.
oh, that's a good
And
idea.
that's something they felt could be done
Oh, that's a good idea.
Quickly.
quickly.
Arlene worked with them to get the fence
she
replaced, so it
did.
looked much more attractive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But now they're willing, I think, to even move the fence back toward their electric yard and maybe free up a few spots.
Put
David,
it
you
up
had mentioned
almost
that
to
some
that
time
bank
ago.
right there,
Yeah.
one of the
I
bank.
think you
So-
could get 10 spots or something if you.
So they are, so it sounds like you are making a little bit.
Yeah, you
We're
are.
chipping away, but we don't have a big grand plan.
So did we ever talk about, in the traffic committee or whatever, about making it one way and then
Parallel parking coming in.
diagonal?
Diagonal.
Either diagonal or, and
Yeah.
that's where Kyle's supposed to be getting us a design engineer to bring recommendations to the traffic committee so that we can make that decision.
Okay,
I think you get more parking like that.
yeah,
You might.
diagonally, you could get a whole lot more down there with the.
There's pros and cons to one way, though. I mean, some businesses are gonna be very reluctant to shift their parking one way.
And
Well, if it's that busy down there, they can't get in and out of their business anyway.
I know, but if what the mayor and Andrew were talking about, that could, that could help quite a bit. Those two things, pushing that
Oh,
fence
yeah.
back
And
and
that gravel.
We're
going
gonna get
across.
some more businesses down there.
And
Yeah.
we continue to have people, of course, Rooster Brewing next
Yeah.
summer will open on Water Street.
Yeah.
Just a booming
Kyle
community.
is working on something.
Yes.
He's looking at a possibility of one way, but
And we'll have to have some public hearings and talk to property owners
Yeah.
but we don't have that fixed yet. And it
It's a
still
hard
is,
fix.
it still's broken.
It's a hard fix.
Anything else, Molly? Really?
Well, getting to speak last, I was going to talk about the Finley 5K too. 'cause
Oh, good.
I was down there, and I was there the year before with Polly, and we were handing out water at the end, and it just was the event just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the cause is so wonderful, and talked my son Jason into coming down and running, and it was good to be a part of that and be there. And also, I was lucky enough to go to the Women's Club tea at the Bradley House and learned, I've been in that house 100 times because my mother and Miss Betsy Bradley were best friends. But I learned it was built 201 years ago.
Wow.
And the proceeds from that touring and the tea went to Ward Hall, which is going to be good. And then one more thing, I had a couple of neighbors say, the clock up here on the courthouse is working perfectly, except it doesn't make any noise anymore. And that bothers them. They really like to hear it strike. And I don't know if
About
that
that.
can be fixed.
They need to call 863-7850 and ask to speak with Judge Laserdick.
Well,
Get the
I mean,
We have nothing to do with that.
637-850.
and then to be last, everybody's slap happy, with my, okay, so that is the direction to send them to talk to the judge?
Yes.
Okay, it's just a neighborhood thing. They
It's
came
the
up and
bell
said-
tower.
I don't hear it
bell
anymore,
That's a bit.
What
And
I
they liked
am-
it.
I liked it too.
What I'm beginning to hear, though, at certain times of day, the college has begun ringing the bells that the Hambrick family
They are.
donated a couple of years
hear
ago.
that. I hear that.
And it'll be an occasional melody or a noon
That's
kind of
nice,
thing. and
nice, really nice.
that,
It's just a neighborhood
nice.
question I had.
Of course, Hambrick's
Thank you.
family donated those to the college. there anything else come?
I got one more.
Yes, sir.
And I hate to bring up something negative about the Finley 500 thing, but it was brought to my attention, I just forgot about it until it was mentioned. But we had a citizen who happens to be my daughter-in-law, who's a nurse at the ICU at UK Hospital, and she left to go to work Saturday night, and she was trapped on her street. She could not leave. Do we look into the routes to make sure that residents who live downtown can at least get out somehow?
How do we do that, Chief?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
I was able to get, I don't know where she
Oh,
lives.
for the rain.
I didn't ever.
Or during the Finley 5K, somebody had trouble leaving their home to get to work.
Right. Yeah, well, we accommodate people as best we can. but
It took her 30 minutes to get out.
Yeah, if it's citizens' safety over car movement, they won't let them go.
So they either have to go a little ahead or.
A little
wait
early.
till-
Yeah, plan around it, but whenever we can accommodate people, we're a lot better at that than we used to be, letting people, it's not a hard and fast, nobody gets through the course. But, if you got a bunch of pedestrians running, you can't shut a car on the road.
Yeah, we're well over 1,000, right?
1,400
Oh, there's-
something.
A record. I saw name numbers over 1,500 numbers on the chest running.
But when we have great events for the community, we also have to respect people have to go to work. So
That's true.
I like to think we can do both.
But most of the time they do. They really do.
We just need to see if we can
When you know
resolve it
something's
next
coming up,
time,
like the
you know.
Festival of the Horse, if you're
Yeah.
from here, you know where to go and what to do.
She said if she knew it was gonna happen and her street was gonna be closed down, or she couldn't get out, she would have,
How long has she been on that street, so?
less than a year.
See, there's,
Oh.
yeah, she just moved in for it.
But she didn't, even if it's every year, you're not gonna realize it's happening that day if you're not really
Well,
involved.
and it's when they come next year to ask about closing streets, and it's something you could just suggest to them, because they do have lots of volunteers. Could they put flyers on cars on the streets that would be closed down to let people know that your street's gonna be closed down?
She asked if she could go the back way, and they said, nope, it's all closed off too.
Yeah, the Finley folks are about as accommodating
Yes,
as
they are.
anybody.
They sure are.
If they knew that neighbors had been inconvenienced, they'd want to help on
I
that.
think if we can remember that for next year, to bring that up to them.
Chuck won't forget it. Sweet Chuck.
Well, I may not be living on that street, but
No, you will be.
I just thought it was bad that a resident
Yeah.
would be trapped on her street because of an activity.
Yeah.
I would totally twist that around and call work and say, oh, you know what, they got the street blocked off, I'm not gonna make it for an hour, see you in a little bit. I'm just saying.
Do
If
they
you got
need
an
to
excuse
hospital
from the
though?
police department.
Yeah, just write us,
Yeah, I would've
write
got
us an excuse from the chief of police.
If there's nothing else come before the council, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.